Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the world's biggest stars and some of my favourite people. And we've got one for you today, a man who I've admired my entire life, who has had a remarkable career. He's got a new documentary film coming out. He's the star of Just a Minute on BBC Radio 4, and I'm delighted to say he's here with us today. Nicholas Parsons, how are you?
I'm very well, Alex, and lovely to see you again. And very nice setting you've chosen for our meeting. There's background music. I hope that's all right.
Well, it proves we're here, doesn't it, I suppose?
It proves we're here. Where would we be otherwise? We're in a very palatial background and a very exclusive hotel, which I would not expect to be anywhere else if it was Alex with me. And so there we are.
I was sat there on Monday night having my tea, listening to you on the radio, and there you are. Your wit and your timing is second to none. And no matter who you have on Just a Minute, you always manage to come in with the zinger and save it. Congratulations.
I don't save it. It's very much a team show. They're successful ones, and some are more successful than others. Everybody contributes, particularly the experienced players of the game. I mean, occasionally the producer, because the BBC like to bring in new blood, and it's such a fiendishly difficult game to play. We make it sound easy because that's our job as professionals. But you try playing it and you soon pause or hesitate or repeat, and you certainly are not consistently funny. But the regulars like Paul Merton and Giles Brandreth and Graham Norton and others like that, and Sue Perkins, they just they found their way of playing it and are not only clever at the game but naturally funny and entertaining. And I believe that one of the successes of the show is about having fun. And I'm a great believer in trying to generate fun wherever I am. And in Just a Minute, that's what I try to do. You know, it's the rapport between the players and the ad-libs and the banter, and as well as playing a very difficult game.
I was up in York with Ken Dodd a few weeks ago, and I mentioned the word retire to him, and he said, well, why would I retire? You only retire from something you don't want to do something else, and I'm doing what I want to do. I guess for you, you are doing what you want to do, and you're able to make those choices, which is a great gift. It's been an amazing career, hasn't it?
Well, I endorse entirely what Ken said. I love dear Ken. He's an amazing man. But I also say something else. I'm in a profession that retires you. Once you can't hack it, can't do it, the employers don't want you, the public go cold on you, and you've had it. So as long as I don't have to retire, why should I retire? And also there's another thing, which is very important. I do believe, and I actually had confirmation of it today from specialists I was talking to, the more you use your brain, your grey matter, it activates the muscles as well. And it helps to keep you young. And nothing is more demanding of the brain cells than Just a Minute. So I say, aren't I lucky that I do a show which I love, which is very successful, and it's helping to keep me young.
You come alive, don't you, when you're behind a microphone or in front of a camera? There's something about those people who are born.
I am an actor, and I worked for years in the theatre. An actor, you have to learn the lines and interpret them. And the art of acting is timing. And the more successful you are at that, the better you will be. So, but as an actor, it was only later in life that I started doing some presenting. And it's taken off. And I'm now known as a presenter. But I'm actually using my skills as an actor in performance, in comedy, in stand-up, and everything like that. And it is all performance. You can say it's all acting. But I get actually rather resentful when people describe me as a presenter, or even worse, as a quiz show host, because I did do a quiz once, which was incredibly successful, and I'm very proud of it. But it wasn't a way of life. It was just another job. And I happened to do it quite well and made it successful. But, I mean, to be known for that, rather than your performances starting from the West End in a very demanding role in Boeing, keeping the show going, in Upper on the House, and Say Who You Are, another one with Below Scales. Those are the achievements of which I'm really proud. The trouble is, you star in the West End for 15 months, which I did, the Duchess Theatre, only my name above the title. And fewer people see you than in one night on television. And but those are the real achievements of which I'm proud. And I trained for years during my time in rep, playing different part every night in a different play. Not every night, every week, sorry. And so I had nearly 2 years in different reps throughout the country, learning my craft. How, as we say, how to walk a stage.
Yes.
And that is the true, that's the grounding. And with that grounding, you can adapt your ability into other areas of performance.
I went to see a play this afternoon called Groundhog Day, and one of the things I don't understand about 8 shows a week is the repetition and how you don't go mad. Did you find that easy? Because that's a discipline few master.
It is a discipline, and you master it. And the way I did it, and one or two others do it again, you have to go on with the impulse, I think that's the right word, as if this was the first time you're doing it. And though you know the words fluently, sometimes you inflect them slightly differently. And that gives a new subtlety to the performance and the show. And it keeps you on your toes. And if the other actors can be the same, then it is a much more successful show. Because I've seen actors, I've been to watch a play, where there's an actor there who's learnt his lines, the play is a success, he's going through the motions, he's saying the same words with the same inflections night after night, and he's rather boring. And that's death's spill. I mean, that's why some actors don't survive so long, because they don't realize you've got to keep your performance fresh all the time. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it.
Can we go back to some of the people you've worked with who impressed you? Were there people you were in awe with that you couldn't believe you were stood next to on a stage? Who were some of those people?
That's an impossible question, because, you know, I was delighted to work with a lot of people, but you can't say, I mean, I'm in awe of anybody who's got talent. And I've worked with some very, very talented people. And I'm not going to produce one at the expense of the other. The best way to answer that is to talk about the successful engagements I've had. And of course one remembers the 10 amazing years with Arthur Haynes. And we were equal partners in a comedy show. He said to me once, he said, Nick, let's get it straight. He said, I am the comic. I mean, you're the four. I mean, as an actor, all the laughs you get in character, brilliant. But the gag lines, they're mine. I said, Arthur, that's exactly how the partnership works. But the point is, I was known as a straight man, but I played a different character in every sketch we did. Usually a figure of the establishment, you know, a lawyer, a doctor, a policeman, MP.
Somebody very important.
Not necessarily important, but from the establishment.
Right.
And so I wasn't like the old-fashioned foil, like dear old Jerry Desmond, who was with Sid Field. And that was the old-fashioned attitude of the straight man. He just came on and said, I don't wish to know that, kindly leave the stage. Yeah, and he just spoke the words. And that's all the comic wanted, was the words, delivered in the same flat, verbatim way. But I took it at a different direction, and I interpreted it. I got a lot of laughs doing it. And I think in the end, Arthur found that I was getting more laughs than he wanted, and the partnership broke up. It was very sad.
Were you sad to move on from that, or was there some tragedy in the fact that that partnership had been so successful for so long and you'd been really loved for it?
No, it was sad, because I said to him, and he suggested, it was a very friendly conversation we had. And I said, but Arthur, are you sure? Because he said, no, mate, listen, we're going to do another series together. It wasn't immediate. And then we're going to America. I think he wanted to keep me, because he wanted to go to America. He didn't want to go to America with someone new. And the thing is that I look back with tremendous affection, and I was just ready to move on. And it was after that, actually, that I got this starring role in Boeing in the West End. So I went back to my theatrical roots, as you might say, and I was back in the theatre working as an actor, a comedy actor, because comedy has always been my particular love and forte and strength. And from then on, it's an interesting thing. Something happens and you get more of the same. Because from that I went into another play called Uproar in the House, which I started at the Whitehall for a time, and then in Say Who You Are, which was at the theatre in the Strand, opposite
Savoy?
the Savoy. No, not opposite the Savoy. Not the Adelphi, next door, the Vaudeville.
Right.
And so you're pushing me to make sure my memory, it's all there. Don't worry.
No flies, are there?
You can't. Once you slip up, you're gone. And so I did a number of plays like that. And then, unfortunately, in one sense, I accepted a job to do a quiz show. And I thought, well, I haven't done that. That'd be a nice experience, because I love doing different things. I went up to Norwich. It was only going to be a small show in the East Anglia area, and it took off and became networked, and the rest is history. But when that job finished, I became so identified. This is the awful thing about the public, the press particularly, with a quiz. I was known as a quiz show host, and it was almost like starting all over again.
I think Bob Monkhouse felt the same, didn't he? That his career had become known for doing quizzes. I think he joked once he'd done more crap on TV than anyone else. That's his words, not mine. But I guess it's not for us to judge what the public will like and what they won't. And if they love you for it, I suppose you have to take the compliment, or do you not?
I think you brought up something quite different. Bob Monkhouse never trained as an actor. He never set out to be an actor. He was a writer, and his comedy was brilliant. To do him after dinner speeches, he was fantastic. But he wasn't. Remember, I'm an old-fashioned thespian. That's how I began. But I acquired the skills and the ability to present things. And the quiz is an example, but I'm commenting on the fact of the literal attitude, particularly of employers.
It's pigeonholing, isn't it?
Pigeonholing. And so, in fact, I had to go back to basics, and I got a job. I mean, I never want to turn down a good job. I never say, what's the money? No, the job's good and different. And a very nice man called Dave Morley phoned me up and said, I'm doing an unusual thing on LWT, London American Television. It's all gone now, it's all ITV. And he said, it's late night. It's from 11 o'clock in the evening until 2 o'clock in the morning. It's something quite different. And it's maybe a youth show, really, with a lot of pop stars. But we've got a mad quiz in it called the Alphabet Game. Would you be interested to do a television show for Radio Money? And I said, well, let's talk about it. And I said, this is tremendous fun, Dave, I'll do it. And that show did go out, and I didn't get much money for it. But it took off. And I suddenly developed a new public with the youth of this country. Then I did that famous thing with Rick Mail and A. Edmondson called Mr. Jolly Lives Next Door, which they sent me up rotten. That was with the comic strip. So I was in with a new audience, a new crowd, the comic strip, night network, and suddenly I was on song again. But people don't realize how tough, how fragile this profession is. But as you would never let up and never say no to a good job. You don't want to do just any job because it's available, but anything that's interesting and different. People get nervous of doing that. No, I see it as a challenge. I've always accepted a challenge. I mean, just a minute, which you mentioned. I mean, the story there is quite interesting. I was never intended to be the chairman. It was Jimmy Edwards. And it was a good choice, because Jimmy ran a show then called Does the Team Think? With 4 people all making jokes and gags. It seemed to be the ideal choice. But they were going to revive it, because Ian Messer had this idea, which he had run before with Roy Plumley, called 1 Minute Please. And I wanted to do something a bit different on radio. I just won the award for Radio Personality of the Year for the satire show, because I wrote and devised the very first satire show on radio called Listen to This Space, which was a one-off and very successful. And I took this up to the BBC, and they said, let's go with it. I was going to be on the panel, which is what I wanted to do ad-lib comedy again, which I hadn't done for a time. And so, but Jimmy was never free on a Sunday when they wanted to record the pilot. Just to remind your listeners or viewers, whoever they are, in radio and television, they record a pilot program. They present that to the powers that be, and if they like it, they commission a series. So the producer, a very clever young man called David Hatch, who finished up brilliant as head of radio in the end, but he just joined the staff as a producer from Cambridge, and Cambridge Footlights, I mean. And David came to me and said, I'm never going to get Jimmy on a Sunday when we want to do the pilot. Will you do me a favour? Will you do the pilot for me? I said, David, no, I'm wrong. I don't want to do that. It's not my scene. It's not me. I don't want to do it. And he said, I'll do a deal with you. You do the chairmanship for the pilot, and if we get the series, you can go on the panel. Okay, David, I'll do it there. Now, the pilot was a disaster. A complete... Ian Messiter was a great inventor, but he'd hamstrung them all with too many incredible things. Can you imagine the game, if you listen to how difficult it is? But he had rounds where you couldn't use plurals, another round where you couldn't use pronouns, another round where you could... And it was so itty-bitty, but David Hatch saw the potential, and he realized that if we reshaped it, it could work. In fact, he basically put his job on the line. And we only got the series because David Hatch said, well, please give it to me, I can make a success of it. And they said, well, all right, you're on your own, off you go. And he got Kenneth Williams in, which was a clever idea. And he came to me and he said, the only thing they quite liked about the pilot was your chairmanship. They think you're a natural choice. And I said, but David, I was awful. He said, I know, but so was everybody else. So in show business, you don't turn down a good job if it's offered you, not if you, like me, and got any sense. And so if you get a job which you haven't done before and you don't think you're right for, you find a way, using all your previous experience in show business elsewhere, to make that job work for you. And as I say in my one-man comedy show, which I do around the country, and I tell the anecdotes about my life, I say, I think I must have done something right, because I'm still doing that job after nearly 50 years.
I was wondering what you make of celebrity today, because it's very different now, isn't it? Going on a TV show in a house where you do nothing for weeks on end and get more money than you could doing any other gig in the business. It's very peculiar.
You're talking about Celebrity Big Brother? Well, it's successful, and I suppose that's a sign of the times. People, it's a bit like watching people in an asylum, isn't it? You know, it's I mean, they do it because they get very well paid, and they're all doing their own thing, and the public love it. And I watch it, and I think, well, it's not for me, but it's good television.
Right.
It's not good television. It's successful television, and it's a sad reflection on human nature in a way, that they like seeing people doing embarrassing, idiotic things rather than doing clever, original, difficult things. But I'm not dismissing it. I mean, we've all got to earn a living. And if you think of an idea, God, if I'd thought of a bloody idea and was running it, I'd be thrilled. You know, it's good luck. They've come up with a brilliant idea which works brilliantly, the public love it, and there's a lot of celebrities who don't mind going in there and embarrassing themselves, and it's the way show business has moved. It's much more personal and intimate now than it was. The jungle I do see, because there they have to do things which are quite horrifying, and I don't know how they do that. I really don't.
Is there any amount of money could get you in there?
I'm too old. I'm far too old. I tell you what I would love to have done years ago, the Strictly Come Dancing. Now that is fantastic, because though they do have people who can't dance, and they try and make them look good, and the public just enjoy that embarrassment of it. But I've always done a lot of ballroom dancing when I was young, and I've I've danced on the stage. I did a very good Charleston in a review many years ago. So years ago, when I was younger and fitter, I would love to have done Strictly Come Dancing. Far too old now. But that is a very good concept and a very good idea. But this is full marks of the people who think of these original ideas, because the public are so satiated, I think that's the right word, with so much television, so much choice. You've got to keep thinking of new ideas, new gimmicks, in order to keep them interested and happy. And when people say, as somebody said the other day to me, well, there's nothing on television to watch, is there? There's so much to watch. And when you think to the days when I was young, I mean, first of all, we had a very modest amount of radio, and we would gather around our radio sets on a Saturday night to listen to In Town Tonight, followed by music hall, and this was great. And then radio got bigger, then television started. It was very modest to begin with, 1 hour in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and 3 or 4 hours at night. Then ITV began, which challenged the BBC, so they got better. And now we got wall-to-wall television all night, and you've got the satellite stations and everything. I mean, it's the old thing, isn't it? You used to say you mustn't spoil your children. People are spoilt for choice. And so they say, oh, there's nothing to watch, is there really?
More doesn't mean better, does it?
There is so much. And if you are selective, we are, because I enjoy my television, we have our favourites, and we watch them. But we look through the listings. There's one of my favourites that's on. And we're not always home to watch it. My wife has now taken to recording things that she likes to see, but you can do anything. People are so spoilt nowadays, you know. You think of all the restaurants, all the food you can get, all the drinks you can get, all the luxury you can get. It's an unbelievable world in contrast with what I knew, not only when I was young, but in my young teens. And it's very sad, and I've only just thought of this now, this word spoilt. Give people too much, they're spoilt. And you try not to spoil your children. But the children of the who watch entertainment, they're spoiled.
And my generation, Phil, being poor, is only having one car and only having Sky, but not the sports channels, and only having a 4-bedroom house, not a 5-bedroom house. It's all relative, isn't it?
Oh, yes. I mean, the sad thing is the cost of things. How do young couples get on that property ladder? Because that was always ambition, to get the security of buying a property and so forth. But they're getting out of all proportion, and it's very. And I mean, and you think of them getting university education, which will help them. I mean, £9,000 they've got to find. I know, because I've got grandchildren. I think about these things. You can have too much of a good thing, and we have got a good thing in all those televisions, and the screens get bigger and bigger. Quite an interesting comment from one of our grandsons, who was up at the house and looking at him, and we were watching something on television, and he said, "Grandpa, I'm rather surprised you've got such a small television." I said, "It fits perfectly into that area." He said, "Somebody in your position should surely
have the biggest TV."
And he did a gesture like that. And you go, some people, they do. They have a television set.
It's like a cinema. Yeah. And to think we're now watching people watching telly who are watching telly on telly, it's extraordinary.
Yeah, but that goggle box thing, that's not entertainment. It's not very good, actually. I can't understand the pleasure from listening. I mean, that actually is, I've got to say, a very boring show.
It's irony, though, isn't it, to think that that's where television's come to, that we're watching other people watching stars at home are sat watching the public watching telly.
Well, I hadn't thought of that. Yes, it's very interesting. But it's back to what we said. It's they're always having to think with so much entertainment, new ideas, and basically, it's another idea. And the public seem to like it, so who am I to criticise it?
I look at you in your spirit as we sit here today, and you've seen so much, and we've probably had more development in the world in the last 30, 40 years with the internet, and again, that's not necessarily a good thing. As you sit here now, you've made it, you've won the war, you're still at home and happy with your wife. Well, in the sense of life, I look at your achievements, your family.
I don't think life's been a war. It's been hard work and dedication. No, I just wait till the next job and hope it'll be as good. As I said earlier on, there's no truer expression in show business. You're only as good as your last job.
But at this point, I mean, you know, after 50 years on the air with Just a Minute, that you've attained a certain level of achievement, surely. You've got to pat yourself on the back and go, this is remarkable. Most don't make 50 weeks, let alone 50 years.
I think what you're conveying is something I feel very deeply about. And a remark of a friend, who was not really show business, said to me, he said, gosh, you've been doing that show for all these years. I suppose you're on automatic pilot, are you now? I said, if I was on automatic pilot, the show would be dead, right, and I would be dead. I mean, every time you go out there to start a new show, you never know. You never know. And I think unconsciously I say to myself, whereas before, when you're first starting, or when you're starting a new show, you think, can we make it successful? And you pump the adrenaline and you're living dangerously. But I think what I unconsciously do now is I said, well, it's worked before, but can it work again? And that pumps the adrenaline, and you go out there and you're fired up, and you have to be. And if you went out like that man who made that stupid remark, just thinking, oh, well, it's been a success before, we just have to go through the motions, the show would die immediately, and I would die with it.
Yeah. I mean, anything like Just a Minute, you've got to be 100% present, or it would just be a car crash. I mean, it's not a show where you can really lose a second, literally.
Yeah, but it's a team show as well. I generate fun between them. Right, I have a huge responsibility there to, I say orchestrate it. But without those brilliant people like Paul Merton and Giles Brandreth and others, you know, it wouldn't work.
As we come to the end of the interview, your latest project is this new documentary film on time. And time is something that's defined your life and career, I suppose, Just a Minute. And then we look at time in itself. You're fascinated by it, watches, clocks, time, and I suppose the duration of time.
Interestingly, and I mentioned it to the director yesterday, I said, nowhere have you got in a comment, which I would like to have included, because I didn't like the dialogue, saying that my work, because it's all about clocks, and my love of clocks, and as an engineer I used to take them apart and put them together and make them work. But I'm in a profession which is all about timing, and one of my hobbies is all about time. And I said that would have been a lovely phrase to be included somewhere. And that's what the program's about. It started off more as an idea which I'd put forward. My father was very thoughtful and said, well, we have an attic room. My son's very interested in making things. Ship them up there. And he got a clockmaker to come in and give me some lessons. And slowly I found bits and pieces that worked, put them together. And I developed an interest in mechanically doing them, as well as a love of clocks. And I still have one or two that I put together myself. They're still working. And then I used to collect carriage clocks, but most of them I've given away now to the members and to my grandchildren, because, you know, as you get older, it is very easy to hold on to everything. And slowly I'm passing things on to the grandchildren, not so they don't have to wait till I die. So I apologize to them for living so old. And I don't think that's very funny, actually, Alex. I don't know why you're laughing.
It was the way you said it. No.
Well, I'm a comedian. I try to make people laugh. Anyway, so this love of clocks. And I said, I've got all these lovely clocks. Why don't we do a program? And they took it up, but they've developed it and into looking at the great clockmakers, which were the English, were the great clockmakers of the past. And then the French, particularly a man called Breguet. And he was the master of masters, clockmaking. I'm trying to make this brief. And so, having talked about him, my love of clocks and instrument clocks, some of the clocks I've repaired and put together, we then go over to Paris, where Breguet worked, and looked at his workshop. and looked at some of the amazing clocks, mostly watches actually, that he made. And we had a week in Paris filming. And then there is one particular watch he made, they call them clocks then, for Marie Antoinette. And it became known as the Marie Antoinette. It is the most amazing piece ever. It's now worth about 30 or 40 million. Yeah. And he never saw it. It took him 40 years to make it. And and then of course the revolution came and he had to get out of the country, but took it with him. And he came back and finished the clock. Marie Antoinette had lost her head on the guillotine in the meantime. But he carried on, and his son took over. And this amazing clock was there. And he was such an artist. Somebody eventually bought it. And eventually it was acquired by a man called Jack Solomons, who then daughter inherited and donated it to the museum in Jerusalem. And then it was stolen by an incredible thief. And it didn't surface, despite that, for 25 years. And we followed this story, and I won't tell you the payoff, but it's now been found. And we tell this story, and it is an amazing, amazing story. So I had a week in Paris. I filmed in this country, of course, and saw some of my clocks, and a week in Paris filming, which was exhausting but interesting. And then I had to fly to Jerusalem, and I had 3 days there, and we filmed in Jerusalem. And so the film is now finished, with certain sections where you have to do what they call the voiceover to link the other visual bits. And in fact, tomorrow morning I'm going up to finish that job off.
And when do you think we'll see it?
Well, they don't know, because it's been commissioned by the BBC.
Right.
Oh, it's been sold, don't worry, they've got the money without, because it's an expensive budget.
Yeah.
My God, I mean, all that travelling alone. But the BBC love it. And it'll either be on BBC 2 or BBC 4. They think it'll probably be, their hunch is October, but we don't know. But it'll be coming out sometime in the autumn.
Nicholas Parsons, I always love talking to you.
Better tell them so they can look for it.
Of course.
It's got a very apt title. It's called A Matter of Time.
I mean this, Nicholas Parsons, with the greatest compliment. You're an inspiration to me and to many. I hope you know how much you're admired and loved by people. You do know that, especially in the business. What you do week in and week out is phenomenal, regardless of your age or where you've come from or anything. It is an incredible career, and to have your length of longevity is astonishing. You do know how much you're loved, don't you?
No, it's just lovely to hear it. Thank you very much indeed. I just go about my job and give out as much as I can to the public, but also privately to my friends and my professional colleagues. I love this profession, and I admire anybody who tries to make a living in it, because it is the toughest profession in the world. I have worked hard, I've had some success, I've enjoyed that success, but I admire anybody else who wants to go into it and make a success. It's a tough, tough visit, but the rewards are worth it. The professional rewards. We're not talking about the financial rewards, because a few people do get ridiculous money, but most people work extremely hard for a very modest amount.
And very finally, just to confirm, you are an actor and not a comedian.
You can call me what you want, but what I said at the beginning, Alex, is don't please label me as a presenter.
Right.
I am an actor who's done comedy, who's done presenting, who's done drama, who's done absolutely everything. But the basis of all performance is acting, timing lines. And so labels are a confusing issue. But I do think if you want to have an encapsulated word, no, that's very bad English, if you want to have a word that encapsulates everything, you say he's an actor. I'm very happy to be called a comedian, because in my one-man show, I play for laughs.
Yeah.
So that's a comedian. If you're presenting, you try to make a smooth-running show. It's a case of mastering the disciplines. Every aspect of entertainment has a different professional discipline. And I have been lucky that I've had the opportunity to experience these different disciplines and be successful in some of them. And I'm proud of the successes I've had. But if you want to put a label on me, it is basically actor.
Well, I want to give you another label. I think you're Mr. Warmth. I think you have incredible charm, and I love you very much for what you do on the air. Nicholas Parsons, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Alex, with those huge compliments, what can I say except thank you. You're very charming to do it.
That's very kind.